Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow, two names that have become synonymous with the romanticized image of the American outlaw. Their names still echo through history, etched into the annals of crime and legend, whispered in saloons and roared in headlines. Their exploits were the talk of the nation. They were young, they were in love, and they were ruthless criminals. Their spree of robberies and murders left a trail of fear and fascination. Their short lives captivated a nation, becoming a symbol of defiance against the harsh realities of the Great Depression. Bonnie and Clyde became symbols of rebellion during the bleakest days of the Great Depression, embodying the desperation and defiance of the era. But their story, like many legends, began long before the newspapers caught wind of their exploits. It was a tale rooted in poverty and hardship. Their tale is one of poverty, desperation, and ultimately a love story set against a backdrop of violence. They met in Texas, both yearning for a life beyond their meager means. It's a story that continues to fascinate, a blend of fact and fiction that has cemented their place in American folklore. Their lives were a mix of romantic escapades and brutal crimes. We will separate the myth from the reality, delving into the true events that shaped their infamous legacy. We will explore the events that shaped them, from their early days of petty crime to their rise as notorious outlaws. And we will witness the dramatic rise and fall of these iconic outlaws whose lives ended in a hail of bullets but whose legend lives on. Clyde Chestnut Barrow was born in 1909, the fifth of 7 children. His family struggled in the dusty plains of rural Texas. Poverty was a constant companion. Clyde's world was one of hardship and limited opportunity. He started working at a young age, contributing to the family's meager income.
School held little appeal for me. I preferred the company of older boys, often getting into trouble. Petty theft provided a thrill and a way to escape the monotony of my existence. The seeds of rebellion were sown early.
Clyde's encounters with the law began with stolen turkeys and escalated to stolen cars. His criminal career, though still in its infancy, was already taking shape. Bonnie Parker's story began in 1910. Born in a small Texas town, she was a bright and ambitious girl. Bonnie excelled in school, showing a particular talent for writing and poetry. Her classmates were drawn to her charisma and infectious energy.
Tragedy struck when I was just 4 years old. My father's death forced our family to relocate. We moved in with my grandparents, seeking stability in a time of grief. Despite the hardship, I remained a dreamer. I longed for a life beyond the confines of our small town.
At 16, she married a local boy, but the marriage was short-lived, ending in separation. Bonnie's yearning for adventure and excitement remained unfulfilled. Fate, it seemed, had other plans for Bonnie Parker. In January of 1930, she met Clyde Barrow at a mutual friend's house. It was an encounter that would change their lives and the landscape of American crime forever.
I was just 19 and I was instantly smitten by the charismatic and dangerous Clyde.
Clyde, 2 years her senior and already on the run from the law, was equally drawn to Bonnie's beauty and vivacious spirit. Their connection was immediate and intense. They were two souls yearning for escape, united by their circumstances and a shared disregard for the law. Their love story, though unconventional and ultimately tragic, was sealed with that first encounter. Their initial courtship was disrupted when Clyde was arrested for burglary. This arrest marked the beginning of a tumultuous journey that would forever alter the course of his life. Clyde Barrow, a young man with dreams and aspirations, found himself entangled in a web of criminal activities that he could not escape. His arrest was not just a momentary setback, it was the catalyst that set him on a path of no return. Sentenced to Eastham Prison Farm, a notoriously brutal Texas penitentiary, Clyde experienced a harsh reality. The conditions at Eastham were beyond deplorable, with inmates subjected to extreme physical and mental abuse. The prison was infamous for its inhumane treatment of prisoners, and Clyde was no exception. He was thrust into a world where survival was the only priority, and the weak were quickly weeded out. The prison system, far from rehabilitating him, hardened him. Instead of finding a path to redemption, Clyde found himself becoming more entrenched in the criminal mindset. The system that was supposed to reform him only served to make him more resilient and determined to defy authority. The brutality he witnessed and endured left an indelible mark on his psyche, shaping him into a person who would stop at nothing to achieve his goals. He witnessed and endured unimaginable brutality. The daily beatings, the constant fear of violence, and the sheer hopelessness of the environment took a toll on him. He saw fellow inmates broken by the system, their spirits crushed under the weight of relentless oppression. But Clyde was different. He used the brutality as fuel to strengthen his resolve. He vowed never to be a victim again.
Survival became my only objective. In a place where trust was a luxury and betrayal was commonplace, I had to rely on my instincts to navigate the treacherous waters of prison life. Every day was a battle, and every interaction was a test of my ability to stay one step ahead of those who sought to bring me down. I learned the art of ruthlessness, the language of violence. In a world where might was right, I had to adapt quickly. I learned to fight, to intimidate, and to assert my dominance. The lessons I learned in prison were harsh, but they were necessary for my survival. I became proficient in the ways of violence, understanding that it was the only currency that mattered in that brutal environment. I committed acts within those prison walls that I would carry with me for the rest of my life. The things I did to survive haunted me, but they also defined me. Each act of violence, each moment of ruthlessness was a step further away from the person I once was. I knew that I could never go back to being the naive young man who had entered those prison gates.
During his time at Eastham, Clyde befriended other inmates, forming alliances that would prove crucial upon his release. These alliances were not just friendships, they were strategic partnerships that would help him navigate the criminal underworld. Clyde understood the importance of having a network of trusted individuals who could provide support and resources when needed. Among them was Ralph Fultz, a hardened criminal who would later become a key member of the Barrow gang. Fultz was a seasoned criminal with a wealth of knowledge and experience. His partnership with Clyde was mutually beneficial, as they both brought unique skills to the table. Together they would go on to commit a series of daring crimes that would capture the nation's attention. Clyde's time in prison transformed him. The experiences he endured and the lessons he learned shaped him into a formidable force. He emerged from Eastham with a new sense of purpose and a determination to never be caught off guard again. The transformation was not just physical, it was a complete overhaul of his mindset and approach to life. He emerged in 1932, a hardened criminal, forever scarred by the experience. The man who walked out of Eastham was vastly different from the one who had entered. He was now a seasoned criminal with a deep understanding of the harsh realities of life. The scars, both physical and emotional, were a testament to the trials he had endured. He was no longer the small-time thief who had entered those gates. The transformation was evident in his demeanor, his actions, and his outlook on life. Clyde Barrow was now a man on a mission, with a clear objective and the skills to achieve it. The prison had taken away his innocence but had given him a new sense of purpose. He was determined to never return. The thought of going back to that hellish place was unbearable. Clyde knew that he had to stay ahead of the law, to outsmart and outmaneuver those who sought to capture him. His resolve was unbreakable, and his determination was fueled by the memories of the brutality he had endured. He was now a man with nothing to lose and everything to gain. Upon Clyde's release, he and Bonnie reunited. Their bond, forged in the shadow of the law, was stronger than ever. They embarked on a life of crime, their love story entwined with a spree of robberies and violence. Their early targets were small stores and gas stations. They craved the thrill of the heist, the adrenaline rush of living on the edge.
Our crimes, though, soon escalated. Driven by a need for money and a growing disregard for authority, we set our sights on bigger targets. Banks, with their promise of a larger payday, became our preferred prey.
Bonnie, initially hesitant, found herself swept up in the excitement. She embraced her role as Clyde's partner in crime. She became his confidant, his lover, and his equal in the eyes of the law. As their notoriety grew, the Barrow gang became a symbol of rebellion and defiance against the law. Their faces were plastered on wanted posters across the country, and their names were whispered in both fear and admiration. So did their need for accomplices. They sought out individuals who shared their disdain for authority and their thirst for adventure. Each new member brought a unique skill set, making the gang more formidable and elusive. The Barrow gang was born not just as a group of criminals, but as a tight-knit community, bound by loyalty and a shared thirst for lawlessness. Around campfires, they would plan their next heist, share stories, and solidify their bonds. A loose-knit group of outlaws bound by loyalty and a shared thirst for lawlessness. Their defiance was not just against the law, but against a society that they felt had wronged them. They were outcasts, but they found strength in their unity. Among the most notable members were Clyde's brother Buck and his wife Blanche. Buck was known for his bravery and unwavering support for his brother, while Blanche brought a sense of family and normalcy to the otherwise chaotic life of the gang.
I was a quiet and reserved man, often lost in my thoughts. I never imagined myself as an outlaw, but circumstances and my loyalty to my brother led me down this path. But fiercely loyal to my brother, our bond was unbreakable, forged through years of hardship and shared dreams. I would follow him to the ends of the earth, no matter the cost. I joined the gang after being paroled from prison, hoping to steer Clyde towards a more peaceful path. I believed that with my influence, we could find a way out of this life of crime, hoping to steer Clyde towards a more peaceful path. I tried to convince him that there was a better way, that we could start anew and leave the violence behind, but the allure of the outlaw life was too strong for him to resist.
I was initially horrified by the gang's activities. The violence and chaos were overwhelming, and I often found myself questioning my decisions. But my love for Buck and my strong sense of loyalty kept me by his side. I couldn't abandon him, not when he needed me the most. Our love was my anchor, even in the darkest of times.
The addition of the Barrow siblings and their respective partners added a new layer of complexity to the gang's dynamics. Their relationships were tested daily, but their shared experiences only made their bonds stronger. They were no longer just lovers on the run. They were a family, bound by blood and circumstance. Their loyalty to each other was their greatest strength, but also their greatest vulnerability. They were a family, bound by blood and circumstance. In the end, it was this sense of family that defined the Barrow gang, making them one of the most infamous groups of outlaws in American history.